marvelous MLOps duo that I'm about to bring onto the stage. Where are you at, Basak and Maria? It's great to see you all.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
Great.
Great. Yeah. It's
Well,
amazing conference. Looking forward to more talks.
Yes, I am looking forward to your talk. So you all have 20 minutes on the clock. I'm excited for what you are about to present. I'm also very excited for all of your growth that you've had over the last year. When we first talked, you were like, yeah, I think we might start posting more on LinkedIn, or we might start writing a blog. It looks like that has worked out quite well for you.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a wonderful journey so far.
Excellent. Well, are you all going to share your screen? I'll pull it up onto the stage once you share it and everything goes well with that. I am going to jump off the screen and share the screen now with all of you. I'll see you in a bit.
I hope people are seeing the right screen.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
All right,
Shall
it's
I
all
go?
yours.
All right, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know there are people from different time zones in the audience. We are Maria and Başak. Thank you for the great introduction, Demetrios. We work in different organizations now. Maria is working at Ahold Delhaize. I am working at Booking.com. And today we're going to show you some overview of what's happening in the market regarding LLMOps and what makes sense to do, actually. Starting with the fact that every company wants to do something with LLMs. It's either top-down from executive level managers as a company objective, or from bottom to top from data scientist initiatives. What we have seen in the market is that those three main applications. There are Q&A systems, there are chatbots, which is the most common, and there are agents, which are actually taking actions on top of the user query, such as sending emails, such as creating a web UI. I've also seen recruitment. The agents are being used in the recruitment process to select candidates or eliminate some candidates. So these are the three main applications we have seen organizations are working on. Another overview is the three different ways to use LLMs. The first one, which is the most common one, is the foundation model, which is using an endpoint from like ChatGPT or Cohere with an additional enhancements of prompt engineering or RAG implementation. The second one is using a pre-trained model with, again, some enhancements of fine-tuning or prompt engineering or RAG implementations. And the last one is training from scratch, again, with some additional RAG implementation or reinforcement learning, human feedback implementations. But it's very clear that the first two are the most popular, the foundation models and pre-trained models. Now I will show you some diagrams that you have seen probably many times. Also, the previous talk was about RAG systems. I'll be sharing these diagrams to remind you how those systems actually look like. This is a naive RAG, which is using a vector database to get some similar context and enrich the prompt. So we get the prompt from the user, and then we create an embedding with the prompt. We send it to vector database. We get some similar context, and we use this similar context to enrich the prompt and send it to our LLM to get a better response. This is a naive RAG that we've seen implemented at organizations. If you want to make it more advanced, if you want to make it more robust and accurate, you can implement some advanced techniques, which is either before retrieval or after retrieval. And the before retrieval, we see semantic query routing, we see query rewriting, we see query expansion as different techniques to apply. And in the post-retrieval part, we see re-ranking of the retrieved similar context, we see summarization, and we see different techniques to actually combine these different contexts retrieved from the vector database. And the rest is very similar to naive RAG. They are used to enrich the prompt, and the LLM uses this context to generate a better response. So this is an advanced version of the RAG systems. Another enhancement of the LLM use cases is when there is a pre-trained model being used, which is fine-tuning. The benefit of using fine-tuning techniques is that the standard available models may not be customized, may not be trained for a specific use case. So with pre-training, you actually fine-tune the model for your specific task. In addition to that, you might also bring your domain knowledge using your own data set and make it the pre-trained model more robust and more customized. In fine-tuning, we also see different techniques from supervision perspective and from parameter training perspective. We see self-supervised fine-tuning, we see supervised fine-tuning, we see reinforcement learning when it comes to supervised trainings. And we also see in the parameter training part different techniques. We either train all parameters, which is very costly, or we use transfer learning, which has been out there for a very long time. The most common one we see in parameter training is parameter efficient fine-tuning. So these were the overviews of some advancements in the LLM use cases. So having shown some techniques, and also given that there has been so much research in LLMs, there has been so many tools developed, so many frameworks, so many libraries released, it's actually very easy to create an LLM application with literally 10 lines of code, or you apply the advanced techniques to actually bring your LLM application closer to the research level. This is the overview of the trends happening in the LLM field and organizations. So I will show you some example of applications announced by big companies or big names. Starting with my favorite, Zalando, because I'm their dedicated customer. Zalando is an e-commerce website, and they released a fashion assistant to help customers navigate through Zalando's large assortment within a chatbot. So you ask certain questions, you give some preferences, and this assistant helps you to find the right product. Another one is from Booking. It's still being developed, but they released a beta version. The AI trip planner helps travelers find their destinations and accommodations via chatting. So you type where you want to go, or what type of holidays you are looking forward to, how many people you are, and the AI trip planner helps you to find the right selection of accommodations. So these are examples of improving user or customer journey in certain platform. But we also have, okay, this is another example of, again, using a chat to actually help customers to navigate and understand their platform, which is from Palantir. This is not a knowledge base. This is not a knowledge-based system, but it's actually a chatbot. If you see an error, if you get stuck in the platform, you ask in the chat and you get an answer and you get a solution. So again, this is an example of improving a user journey. But we also have seen in the news that things can go wrong. So I'll show you this example. This is a grocery supermarket from New Zealand, Pack and Save. The intention was great. They wanted to help customers to use their leftovers. So it asks users to enter various ingredients and it generates a recipe. But you don't have control over what users are giving to this application. So when users actually start giving unedible ingredients to this app, it still generated some recipes which were not really edible. Another example of what can go wrong is from DPD, which is a delivery firm, which is a shipment company. And in the DPD chat, when users ask for recommendation for better firms, the DPD chatbot is actually starting to criticize the DBT itself and in a very negative way. And this is not what you want for your chatbot to do. So you don't always have control over your LLM application. Therefore, we say before starting an LLM project, you should conduct an impact risk assessment. And after you've done your POC, you should conduct your maturity assessment. And these are very common best practices, have already been existing in the data science use case domain. But Maria will actually deep dive into each assessment to show you what is different and necessary for specifically LLM use cases.
Thank you, Başak. So I think the most important thing is to start with impact assessment. You need to identify the business problem, actually find the business users, and understand, do you really need LLM for this specific use case? Because very often you don't need an LLM. You may have a simpler solution that works very well for your business objective. Then often what we see is data scientists are eager to try all these new cool techniques, and they start a project which is not aligned with the business objectives, which is doomed to fail because there is no business owner from the company that will actually support your use case. Estimated cost before you start, it's very important to know how much it will cost and how long it will take to build the project. And obviously, what would be the impact of it? Because if costs are higher than the impact, then it doesn't make that much sense to start with the project in the first place. So after the impact assessment is done, you also need to do the risk assessment. A lot of use cases that we see, pretty much every corporate company has an internal knowledge-based use case currently that is LLM based. But some are trying to do something customer-facing, as we have seen in the examples. And the risks of those applications is much higher because you can end up bad in the news, as some companies do. Preventing hallucination is also very important, especially for customer-facing applications and privacy concerns. What if you need to have PII data as part of the chat application? How do you handle that? How do you handle the bias? Because all the models are biased, people are biased, the data that models were trained on is biased. So how do you handle that properly? Data security breach is another problem that may occur for customer-facing application. When you have an LLM system, it's most likely that you have a RAG application and you are actually depend on some external third-party API. And what if that goes down? What kind of impact it will have on your system? Lack of human oversight. It's crucial to have someone monitoring the output coming from the system, and also misuse of AI. So it can be that people don't use the chat bot or whatever application you have in the way that is intended to use by providing it some other information, and you don't want that either. So you need to understand the risks before you actually start with your POC. And we don't see that happening that often. So after you actually have something in place, a POC, and it is working successfully, you want to understand how mature you are. And what we've seen that people actually think they are more mature than they actually are. And it is the case for a standard ML application, but also for LLM applications. A couple of years ago, me and Basak created MLOps maturity assessment. We actually mentioned in the podcast for MLOps community back then as well, and we released it also. And we conducted the maturity assessment within Ahold Delhaize, that's a company that has many different brands and many different applications, and we did it on the project level. And I think that's the difference between maturity assessments that are proposed by Google or by Microsoft. There is a maturity level for MLOps, and there it's actually looked at the organization and how teams are organized, but it's not very actionable. You don't know how to change it. So when we look at the MLOps maturity assessment, we have 7 main points, which is documentation, traceability, reproducibility, code quality, monitoring, A/B testing, feature stores, and explainability. So the 4 first ones are the most important. Documentation. So you need to know whether KPIs and business goals are documented. Software architecture design is there in place. There is ML model choice that is clearly defined. Why have you chosen for that model? Traceability and reproducibility. I think that's the whole core of MLOps. that for any machine learning model deployment, you need to know what the code produced the model, what infrastructure environment was used, what model artifacts were produced, and what data was used for model training. Code quality best practices to ensure that there is a pull request process, that there are CI/CD pipelines that actually run automated unit and integration tests, and that there is monitoring in place. And these 4 pieces are also really important for LLM applications. However, for LLM applications, we have extra questions that are also crucial to go through. So if Başak, you go to the next slide. So there are LLMOps specific questions. For example, regarding foundation model API, for any API call, we can look up which endpoint and version was used, the structure of request and response, token usage cost, latency, what prompt and response was generated. Then for RAG application, you have 3 pieces of generated embedding, storing, and retrieving embeddings. So when generated embeddings, you can look up what model was used to actually generate the embeddings, computational and retrieval latency, how documents are parsed, how long are the chunks, and what was the strategy for creating those chunks. Storing embeddings. So when storing embeddings, typically some vector database, we can look up how that database is updated with the new documents. Then metadata saved with the chunks, and which document and part of the document that the chunk is coming from. And when retrieving embeddings from the vector database, we can look up how many chunks are retrieved, the strategy for combining chunks, metadata filtering, so what metadata was actually retrieved, and what similarity algorithm was used. Then there is also an important piece of prompt engineering, so that there is a strategy present for integrating content into user query and also query enrichment before it's sent to a foundation model. The prompt engineering is a huge topic in LLM research, and probably everyone has heard about OpenAI's guide to prompt engineering. That's a great resource that gives you some ideas on how you can do that better. And fine-tuning. So model fine-tuning is actually very similar to the process of training in MLOps. So you need to know what code was used for model fine-tuning, what infrastructure was used, what artifact was produced, what training data was used. Also the retraining strategy. So how often do you fine-tune your model, and how the whole process automation of it looks like. And methodology, how do you actually fine-tune? There are multiple ways, and for some you will need to have some infrastructure in place. And coming back to the infrastructure point, I think there are some core pieces in MLOps infrastructure. So it's actually quite simple. You need version control, you need to have CI/CD, you need to have some orchestration. I think Airflow is probably the most widely used. You need to have something for model registry. So you have SageMaker, Vertex AI registries, MLflow, container registry. You need to have something for compute and serving. So there are end-to-end tools for that as well. Evaluation and monitoring. So for monitoring, you have some standard monitoring tools that are used also for software engineering. And feature stores like Tecton, Databricks has a feature store, SageMaker, HopsWorks, Feast. So those components are the core components for MLOps, and we will also need them for LLMOps. But for LLMOps, we also have very specific extra components, like foundation model API providers, like Amazon Bedrock. Databricks has released a foundation model API, which is quite interesting, the way how they implemented Vertex AI and Azure OpenAI. You have vector databases, which wasn't the core piece of MLOps before, but they are very useful, not just for LLM, but for other applications like recommender systems. So I think they will stick around also for standard MLOps. and also some prompt engineering UIs, which are very handy. MLflow released it recently. So we will see different changes in the whole infrastructure, and obviously also compute and serving will have different requirements. If you need to do some fine tuning and model serving compared to standard MLOps, but this is still the core piece of infrastructure. So we actually created the list of recommended resources. I believe it will be coming on our GitHub and also on our LinkedIn soon. But here are some interesting resources we've seen, like a large language model, a survey that came out recently. Eugene Yan has a really nice blog, and he writes a lot about LLMs. Rex for LLM survey, and reinforcement learning with human feedback from Hugging Face. A lot of research, a lot of people working on it. So if you have any question, you can send us an email, and you can connect to us on different social media. You can scan the QR code for that. And thank you very much. We love cats, so we have a lot of cats in our presentation.
Somebody called out specifically that they love the memes. So the meme game is on point. That is for sure. You are professional memers. So there's some questions that are coming through the chat, and I think we have a minute to answer them. If you all are open for it.
Of course.
Let's see here. Lauren's asking, in your opinion, what is an ideal scenario for evaluating whether to use LLMs and the cost that incurs? I.e., who should we be talking or shoot? All right. Words are hard. So give me a sec. Let me try this one again. What's an ideal scenario for evaluating whether to use LLMs and cost? E.g., who should be talking to who? What are some common challenges in these discussions? So I think this is an organizational level question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends on the application and what makes sense. We had an interesting use case regarding recipes. So I think recipes in general is now a very complicated topic because of one company coming bad in the news because of it. But I think we ended up doing some POC, not with LLMs, just with OCR. You scan a recipe and you so the system understands what kind of ingredients you need, and it just suggests the one based on some recommender system and the similarity to you and adds it to the basket. There is no LLM needed for that, right? You can do it with just OCR.
Yeah.
I think it should start from actually defining some KPIs. Improving user experience may not be always measurable, but with the chatbot, for example, as a sales agent, or with a chatbot as a knowledge base, what exactly you want to get out of it? Do you actually want to improve a certain experience, or do you want to actually increase sales? So defining those, and then also at the POC level, comparing if it's actually bringing that value would be very helpful.
No, I just want to tell my shareholders that I'm using AI. That's all I want to do.
Or that. Or you want to actually please your executive level managers and so that they can use we have Gen AI.
Yes, exactly. That makes the stock go up, up, up to the moon. So are there any particular grounding techniques you could recommend if those exist?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think we don't have that problem because I think, well, depending on the industry, obviously, but for food retailers, I think it's quite hard to come up with a solid business use case for LLMs. So if there was one, I think management would be much more eager to do something with it. But now they basically just do things on paper, I would say. So we have a Gen AI lab, but there is no per se use case that can generate serious value. So I think that's yeah, that's quite complicated here situation here.
Excellent. Well, we've got I think that is it. There are a few more questions in the chat, but I'm going to keep it rocking. Basak and Maria, for everyone that is not already following you on LinkedIn, I encourage them to follow you and enjoy all the incredible memes and the amazing posts that you have. Thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.